Welcome, dear travelers, to another peaceful journey with the Sleepy Storyteller. Tonight, we embark on a gentle voyage that will carry us across the vast, endless oceans of our beautiful planet. As you settle into your comfortable sanctuary, allow your breathing to slow, and let us drift together into the mesmerizing world of ocean currents. Imagine, if you will, that you are a single drop of warm water. Beginning your journey in the sun-kissed tropical seas, you'll travel thousands upon thousands of miles through deep ocean valleys and across surface waters that shimmer like liquid sapphire under starlight. This is your story. Our story. A tale as old as the earth itself. Close your eyes now, and let's begin this tranquil odyssey together. Chapter 1. The Birth of Movement. Our story begins billions of years ago, when the earth was young and the first oceans were born. Picture, if you can, those primordial waters still and silent, waiting, but even in that ancient stillness, the seeds of motion were already stirring. The sun, our eternal companion, cast its warm rays upon the surface of these newborn seas. And here, dear listeners, begins the gentle magic that would shape our planet's destiny. As the sun's energy touched the water, something beautiful happened. The surface waters began to warm, becoming lighter, more buoyant, while the deeper waters remained cool and dense. Let us drift now to understand this delicate dance. When water warms, its molecules begin to move more freely, spreading apart ever so slightly, making the water less dense, like a whisper of silk rising through heavy velvet. Warm water naturally wants to rise, while cool water, thick with density, wants to sink. This simple truth, this fundamental law of nature, would become the heartbeat of our oceans, the invisible engine that drives currents around our globe. Even to this very night, as you rest peacefully, ancient peoples, gazing out at the seemingly endless seas, could not have imagined the vast rivers of water flowing beneath the surface. The Polynesian navigators, master sailors of the Pacific, spoke of the ocean as having many moods and many paths. They called these invisible highways Te Moana, the great water roads that connected distant islands like a vast living web. As we wander deeper into this tale, let us follow our warm water drop as it begins its magnificent journey, starting perhaps in the Caribbean Sea, where the tropical sun beats down with loving intensity, warming the crystal-clear waters to a perfect, bath-like temperature. Here in these blessed waters, our drop joins billions of its companions, all warmed by the same generous sun, all beginning to feel the first stirrings of an ancient urge to move, to flow, to begin the great circulation that will carry them across the world. The trade winds, those faithful companions of sailors and dreamers, begin to whisper across the surface, gently pushing, coaxing, encouraging our warm waters to begin their westward dance. And so begins the Gulf Stream, one of the ocean's mightiest rivers, flowing not through land, but through the sea itself. Picture this river of warm water, 60 miles wide in some places, flowing with the power of 1,000 earthbound rivers combined, carrying not just water, but warm life energy from the tropics toward the distant shores of Europe and beyond. Our single drop, now part of this magnificent current, begins to sense the rhythm of its journey, sometimes moving swiftly at the surface, sometimes diving deeper where the pressure increases and the light grows dim, always moving, always flowing in the eternal dance of the sea. The ancient Greeks in their wisdom spoke of Poseidon's horses, great steeds that carried the sea god across the ocean depths. Perhaps they were seeing in their poetic way these very currents, these underwater rivers that move with the power and grace of mythical creatures. Chapter 2. The Gulf Stream's Gentle Power. As our warm water drop continues its northward journey, let us imagine the profound transformation taking place beneath the waves. The Gulf Stream, this river within the ocean, carries with it not just water, but the very essence of tropical warmth, a gift from the equatorial sun to the distant northern lands. Benjamin Franklin, that curious mind of the American colonies, was among the first to truly understand this oceanic highway in 1769 while serving as deputy postmaster. He noticed something peculiar. Mail ships traveling from England to America took weeks longer than those traveling from America to England. How curious, he thought. As he pondered this mystery by candlelight in his study, the answer came from Nantucket whalers. Those brave souls who knew the sea's secrets. They told Franklin of a great river of warm water, flowing like a liquid current through the Atlantic, helping eastbound ships, hindering westbound ones. Franklin called it the stream and had it mapped, creating one of the first charts of what we now know as the Gulf Stream. He understood, even then, that this was no ordinary current, but a force of nature that connected distant shores, carrying warmth from the Caribbean to the coasts of Europe. Our single drop, now traveling at perhaps 4 miles per hour, experiences the rhythm of this ancient flow, sometimes swift and purposeful near the surface, sometimes slow and meditative in the deeper waters, always part of something greater than itself. The Norse sailors, those intrepid voyagers who crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, told stories of warm roads in the sea. They spoke of waters that steamed in the cold northern air, and of sea serpents that followed these mysterious currents. Perhaps they were seeing the Gulf Stream itself, this warm river that seemed to breathe life into the cold northern seas. As our drop flows northward past the Carolinas, past the Chesapeake, it carries with it microscopic passengers, tiny organisms that glow with bioluminescence, creating trails of living light in the dark waters. The sailors of old called this sea fire, and believed it was the breath of sea dragons, illuminating their path through the night. Let us drift now, with our warm water drop, as it encounters the cold Labrador current flowing southward from the Arctic, like 2 rivers meeting. One warm and tropical, the other cold and Arctic. They dance together, mixing slowly, creating swirls and eddies that can be seen from space. This meeting of waters, this confluence of temperatures, creates some of the richest fishing grounds on Earth. The Grand Banks of Newfoundland, where warm tropical waters meet cold Arctic currents, bringing nutrients to the surface, creating a feast for countless marine creatures. The Portuguese fishermen, who have sailed these waters for centuries, called this the meeting place of the waters. They could see the line where blue tropical water met the gray-green Arctic flow, and they knew in their ancestral wisdom that where waters meet, life flourishes. Our drop continues its journey, now cooling slightly as it moves into northern latitudes, the warm embrace of the tropics slowly fading as it prepares for the next phase of its endless voyage. But even as it cools, it carries within it the memory of warmth, the gift it will share with distant shores. As we follow this gentle current, imagine the countless creatures that call it home, the sea turtles that ride its flow like an oceanic highway, traveling thousands of miles, guided by currents they cannot see, but somehow feel, the eels from European rivers that spawn in the Sargasso Sea, their young carried by the Gulf Stream back to their ancestral waters. The ancient Celts, living along the shores of Ireland and Scotland, noticed that their winters were gentler than those of other lands at the same latitude. They attributed this to the breath of Manannan Maclyre, the sea god who brought warmth from distant lands across the waves. Little did they know, they were experiencing the gift of our Gulf Stream, carrying tropical heat to northern shores in the deep waters, where pressure increases with every fathom. Our drop sometimes descends into the midnight zone, where no sunlight penetrates. Here, in this eternal darkness, the current flows like a ghost river, carrying warmth through the abyss, past creatures that have never seen the sun, past underwater mountains and valleys that dwarf any landscape on land. The deep sea, this alien world beneath our feet, remains largely unexplored, more mysterious than the surface of Mars. Yet through it all, our currents flow, connecting every ocean, every sea in one great circulation system that has no beginning and no end. Chapter 3. Across the Atlantic, rivers in the sea. As our warm water drop continues its northeastward journey, carried by the North Atlantic current, it begins one of the most remarkable voyages on our planet, crossing 3,000 miles of open ocean, carrying with it the warmth and memory of distant tropical shores. Picture, if you will, this invisible river flowing through the sea 60 miles wide, hundreds of feet deep, moving with quiet determination across the vastness of the Atlantic. Our single drop, now part of this mighty current, has become a messenger, carrying tropical warmth to lands that would otherwise be locked in Arctic cold. The Vikings, those bold seafarers of the north, unknowingly rode these very currents on their voyages to Iceland, Greenland, and beyond. They spoke in their sagas of whale roads and seal paths, not understanding that they were describing the ocean's own highways, the currents that would carry them safely across the whale road to distant shores. Eric the Red, that legendary explorer, when he sailed from Iceland to Greenland around 985 AD, was guided by more than just stars and wind. He was carried by the Irminger Current, a branch of our same Gulf Stream system, flowing northward along Greenland's southern coast. The warmth of these waters, born in Caribbean sunshine, made it possible for Vikings to establish settlements in what seemed like the edge of the world. Let us drift deeper now into the science of this magnificent flow. As our warm water travels northward, it begins to cool, releasing its stored heat into the atmosphere. This heat, this gift from the tropics, rises into the air, warming the winds that blow across Europe, making London's climate more like that of southern France, making Ireland's shores green and temperate. Without this oceanic gift, London would have the climate of Labrador. Paris would be as cold as Montreal. The entire civilization of Western Europe, its history, its culture, its very existence has been shaped by this river of warm water flowing silently beneath the waves. Ancient Celtic mythology tells of the otherworld, accessible through lakes and seas, where time moved differently, where warmth existed even in winter. Perhaps in their mystical way, they were sensing the truth, that beneath the cold surface waters lay rivers of warmth, connecting their shores to distant magical lands. As our drop flows eastward, it encounters the complex topography of the ocean floor. The mid-Atlantic ridge, that underwater mountain range that splits the Atlantic in two, forces our current to navigate around seamounts and through underwater valleys, each obstacle creating swirls and eddies. Like the current is painting invisible spirals in the deep blue canvas of the sea. The Portuguese navigators of the 15th century, Prince Henry's bold mariners, learned to read these currents like a book. They discovered that by sailing far out into the Atlantic, they could catch the trade winds and currents that would carry them swiftly south along the African coast, and then back north to Europe. Columbus himself, on his return voyage from the New World, rode the Gulf Stream northward, then caught the westerlies and the Canary Current to carry him back to Spain. He had discovered, perhaps without fully understanding, the great circular pattern of Atlantic currents, the oceanic carousel that connects four continents. Our warm water drop, now cooling as it travels north, begins to feel the pull of another force, the Coriolis effect, that invisible hand of Earth's rotation, gently deflecting moving water to the right in the northern hemisphere. This ancient dance between planet and ocean creates a great circular patterns we call gyres, vast wheels of water that turn slowly, eternally, in each ocean basin. In the depths, where our drop sometimes ventures, pressure increases dramatically, every 33 feet deeper. The pressure doubles. In these crushing depths, water behaves differently, becoming denser, more viscous. Yet still our currents flow, like liquid highways, through an alien landscape of eternal night. The deep-sea creatures that inhabit these depths, the anglerfish with their bioluminescent lures, the giant isopods scavenging the seafloor, the mysterious giant squid, all depend on these deep currents. These underwater rivers carry nutrients, oxygen, and food from the surface whirled down into the abyss, sustaining life in Earth's final frontier. As our drop approaches the European continental shelf, it begins to encounter the complex mixing zones where warm Atlantic water meets cold Arctic currents. The Faroe-Shetland Channel, that underwater gateway between Scotland and Iceland, becomes a battleground where tropical and Arctic waters wage their eternal struggle. Here, in these mixing waters, some of the richest fishing grounds in the world are born. The collision of warm and cold creates upwelling, bringing nutrients from the deep, feeding vast populations of plankton, which in turn feed fish, seabirds, whales, and ultimately the fishing communities that have depended on these waters for thousands of years. The Sami people of northern Norway reindeer herders, who also fished the Arctic seas, told stories of the great whale Adi, who swam in circles around the world, stirring the waters, keeping the seas moving. Perhaps they were seeing in their shamanic wisdom the great circulation of the oceans, the eternal movement that keeps our planet's waters alive. Our single drop, now thousands of miles from its Caribbean birthplace, begins to feel a new calling. The waters around it are cooling, becoming denser, preparing for the next phase of the great journey. Soon, it will begin its descent into the deep, joining the great conveyor belt of deep water that flows along the ocean floor, carrying the story of the surface world into the midnight depths. But before we follow our drop into those mysterious depths, let us pause and imagine the countless passengers it has carried on this remarkable journey. The microscopic plankton, drifting in eternal dance, the larval stages of countless sea creatures, riding the current like tiny astronauts in a liquid cosmos, each drop of seawater, the universe unto itself, teeming with invisible life. Chapter 4. The Great Descent into the Midnight Waters. As our warm water drop continues its journey through the North Atlantic, something profound begins to happen. The tropical warmth that has been its companion for thousands of miles slowly dissipates into the cold northern air like a gentle exhalation. The heat rises, warming the winds that will carry this gift across the European continent. Here in the seas between Greenland and Norway, in the deep waters near the Arctic Circle, our drop experiences one of the ocean's most remarkable transformations. As it cools, it becomes denser, heavier, and like a tired traveler finally ready to rest, it begins to sink, joining the deep waters that flow like ghost rivers along the ocean floor. This transformation, this great descent, is one of the engines that drives our planet's circulation. Scientists call it thermohaline circulation. But the ancient Norse had a more poetic name. They called it the Great Churning, the endless stirring of the world's waters by invisible hands. Imagine, if you will, our single drop beginning its slow descent past the sunlit surface waters, where whales breach and seabirds dive, past the twilight zone, where bioluminescent creatures sparkle like living stars, down into the midnight zone, where no sunlight has ever penetrated, where pressure builds with each fathom, and time moves to a different rhythm. The Inuit peoples of Greenland, master readers of ice and sea, spoke of Sedna, the sea goddess who ruled the deep waters. They believed she controlled the movements of sea creatures, the formation of ice, the very breath of the ocean itself. In their mythology, the deep currents were Sedna's hair, flowing eternally through the underwater world, connecting all seas, all life. As our drop descends, it joins the North Atlantic deep water, one of the great masses of water that flow like underwater rivers around our globe. This deep current, born in the cold northern seas, will carry our drop on a journey that spans not miles, but millennia. For in the deep ocean, time moves at the pace of geology itself. The deep waters move slowly, majestically, like liquid mountains flowing along the ocean floor. Our drop, now part of this ancient procession, travels at perhaps 1 centimeter per second, so slowly that a human lifetime would pass before it crosses a single ocean basin. Yet this patient flow, this eternal circulation, is what keeps our planet's climate stable, what distributes heat and nutrients to every corner of our blue world. In the crushing depths where pressure exceeds 400 times at its sea level, where the temperature hovers just above freezing, our drop encounters a world beyond imagination. Giant tube worms cluster around hydrothermal vents, feeding not on sunlight, but on the chemical energy seeping from Earth's interior. Ghost-like creatures drift through the eternal night, their bodies translucent, their movements hypnotically slow. The ancient Greeks believed that beneath the ocean lay the realm of Hades, a dark underworld where souls wandered in shadow. Perhaps they intuited in their mythic way the existence of this deep ocean realm, this underwater cosmos where different laws apply, where time stretches like taffy, and strange creatures have evolved in perpetual darkness. Our drop, now traveling southward along the ocean floor, follows the deep western boundary current. Hugging the continental slopes of the Americas, this underwater river, invisible from the surface, is one of the most powerful currents on Earth, carrying more water than all the world's rivers combined. Think of it, this mighty flow occurring in complete darkness, thousands of feet beneath the waves where sailors have traveled for millennia. Unaware of the vast circulation occurring in the depths below, the ocean, it seems, keeps its greatest secrets hidden in the deep. As our drop flows southward through the depths, it passes beneath the very waters where it began its journey. The warm Gulf Stream still flows northward at the surface, while our drop, now cold and dense, flows southward in the depths, like two lovers passing in the night. One ascending, one descending, in the eternal dance of oceanic circulation. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia, whose ancestors traveled the seas for over 60,000 years, told stories of the rainbow serpent, a great creature that moved through land and sea, creating rivers shaping the world, connecting all waters in one great circulation. Perhaps they understood, in their dreamtime wisdom, this very flow, this serpentine current that connects every drop of water in every ocean. In the deep Atlantic, our drop encounters underwater mountains of mid-Atlantic ridge, where new ocean floor is born from volcanic activity. Here in the crushing depths, Earth itself is being created, molten rock cooling into new seafloor. While ancient rock is consumed in distant trenches, the ocean floor, we discover, is not permanent but constantly recycling. Just like the waters that flow above it, hydrothermal vents, those underwater geysers, punctuate the deep seafloor like oases in a liquid desert. Around these vents, entire ecosystems thrive without sunlight. Giant clams, ethereal jellyfish, bizarre fish with transparent heads, all sustained by the chemical energy of Earth's interior. These communities, isolated in the deep, have evolved independently for millions of years, creating forms of life found nowhere else on our planet. Our drop, patient in its deep journey, carries within its molecular structure the memory of its travels. The oxygen it absorbed at the surface, the carbon dioxide from long-dead plankton, the trace elements picked up from underwater mountain ranges. Each drop of seawater is a library containing the history of its journey through time and space. The deep waters, we are learning, are not empty highways, but teeming with life. Microscopic organisms, bacteria, that have learned to thrive in conditions that would be lethal to surface dwellers. These creatures, living in eternal darkness and crushing pressure, in near-freezing temperatures, expand our understanding of what life is possible, what forms consciousness might take in the vast universe beyond our world. As our drop continues its southward journey through the depths, it approaches the equator. Here in the deep Atlantic, it encounters the complex geometry of underwater mountain ranges, forcing it to navigate through gaps and channels like a river finding its way through a submerged landscape. The Bermuda Triangle, that mysterious region where ships and planes have supposedly vanished, sits above one of these complex deep water systems. Perhaps the legends, the stories of strange disappearances, reflect some deeper intuition about the mysterious forces at work in the ocean depths. The invisible rivers of water flowing through an underwater world we barely understand. Our drop, now carrying the chemical signature of the North Atlantic, begins to mix with waters from other sources, Antarctic bottom water, flowing northward from the Southern Ocean, Mediterranean outflow water, dense with salt, each contributing to the complex layering of the deep sea, like ingredients in some vast cosmic soup, mixing slowly, creating the rich chemistry that sustains all oceanic life. Chapter 5. The Southern Ocean's Embrace, where all waters meet. Our water drop, now ancient in its journey through the deep Atlantic, approaches one of the most magnificent and turbulent regions of our planet's oceans, the Southern Ocean, that wild ring of water surrounding Antarctica, where the mightiest current on Earth flows unobstructed around the bottom of the world. Here, in these stormy southern seas, our drop encounters the Antarctic circumpolar current, a river of water, so vast, so powerful, that it connects all three major oceans, Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian in one continuous, eternal flow. This current, unimpeded by continents, circles the globe like a liquid wedding ring, binding all waters in sacred union. The early explorers, those brave souls who ventured into these treacherous waters, spoke of the roaring 40s, the furious 50s, and the screaming 60s, these latitudes where winds howl across thousands of miles of open ocean, where waves can tower 50 feet high, where icebergs drift like floating cathedrals in the gray-green seas. Captain James Cook, on his second voyage around the world, was among the first to truly comprehend the vastness of these southern waters. In 1774, as his ship Resolution battled mountainous seas and howling gales, he wrote in his journal of waters that seemed to have no end, currents that flowed with unstoppable power, connecting distant shores in ways he could barely imagine. Our drop, now caught in this mighty circulation, experiences forces unlike any it has known. The Antarctic circumpolar current moves more water than any other current on Earth, 600 times the flow of the Amazon River, carrying our drop eastward around and around the frozen continent like a liquid carousel that never stops turning. In the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of Tasmania, the great island that sits in the path of these southern currents, elders spoke of the Great Swimming, a time when ancestor spirits swam in circles around the world, stirring the waters, keeping the sea alive. They understood in their ancient wisdom that the ocean was not still water, but a living thing constantly in motion, constantly changing. As our drop flows eastward in the Antarctic circumpolar current, it begins to mix with waters from all the world's oceans. Pacific water, rich with nutrients from deep upwelling zones, Indian Ocean water, carrying the chemical signatures of tropical monsoons, all flowing together in this great southern mixing bowl, where the planet's waters become one. The Southern Ocean, despite its fearsome reputation among sailors, is one of the most biologically productive waters on Earth. Here, where cold Antarctic waters rise to the surface, they bring with them nutrients from the deep, feeding vast blooms of phytoplankton, the tiny plants that form the base of the ocean's food web. Our drop, as it circles Antarctica, witnesses one of nature's greatest spectacles, the krill swarms, clouds of tiny shrimp-like creatures, so dense they color the water red. These krill, no bigger than a paperclip, support the largest animals ever to live on Earth, the great baleen whales, blue whales, fin whales, humpback whales, all following the circumpolar current on their feeding migrations. The ancient Maori of New Zealand, whose ancestors navigated these southern waters in their great voyaging canoes, told stories of Tangaroa, the ocean god who controlled all waters. They believed that in the far south, where the ice touched the sea, Tangaroa's power was strongest, that the currents there were the arteries of the ocean god himself, pumping life through all the seas of the world. As our drop continues its eternal circulation, it encounters the Ross Ice Shelf, that vast floating glacier larger than France. Here, where ancient ice meets the sea, our drop witnesses the formation of Antarctic bottom water, the coldest, densest water on our planet. This newborn water, supercooled and heavy with brine, sinks to the ocean floor, beginning its own journey into the deep. In the depths beneath the ice shelf, our drop experiences one of Earth's most alien environments. Here, in caverns carved from ice and waters that never see sunlight, never feel wind, strange creatures have evolved in isolation. Fish with antifreeze proteins in their blood, sea spiders the size of dinner plates, creatures so adapted to this icy world that they would perish in warmer waters. The ice itself, ancient beyond measure, contains within its frozen layers the history of our planet's climate. Air bubbles trapped in this ice hold samples of atmosphere from hundreds of thousands of years ago. The ice shelf, we realize, is not just frozen water, but frozen time, a library of Earth's climatic memory. Our drop, now thoroughly mixed with Antarctic waters, carries within itself the chemical signatures of this polar realm, isotopes that mark its passage beneath the ice, nutrients absorbed from glacial melt, microscopic life forms found nowhere else on Earth. It has become, in its molecular structure, a messenger from the bottom of the world. The emperor penguins, those remarkable birds that breed on the sea ice in the depths of Antarctic winter, depend on these currents for survival. The adult birds, walking hundreds of miles across the ice to reach open water, dive deep into our current, following it to rich feeding grounds, where krill and fish gather in the upwelling waters. As our drop flows eastward with the circumpolar current, it begins to sense the gravitational pull of other ocean basins. To the north, the warm waters of the Indian Ocean call. To the northeast, the vast Pacific beckons. The Southern Ocean, we discover, is not just one current, but a complex system of flows, all interconnected, all part of the great circulation that connects every drop of water in every sea. The Kerguelen Islands, those remote volcanic peaks rising from the Southern Ocean, are home to some of the world's most extraordinary wildlife. Here, in waters stirred by our circumpolar current, elephant seals gather in vast colonies, their deep dives carrying them down into the very currents our drop follows. These seals, master divers of the deep, can descend over a mile, holding their breath for 2 hours, following our underwater highways to find food in the abyss. Our drop, patient in its circulation around Antarctica, experiences the changing seasons in this polar realm. In summer, when the ice retreats, the surface waters bloom with life. Millions of seabirds, petrels, albatrosses, skuas, gather to feed in the nutrient-rich currents. In winter, when darkness returns and ice advances, our drop flows beneath a frozen ceiling. In a world of eternal night, the albatrosses, those magnificent seabirds with wingspans reaching 12 feet, use these southern currents like aerial highways. They can soar for hours without flapping their wings, riding the winds generated by the circumpolar current. Following our drop's path around the continent, some albatrosses fitted with tracking devices have been recorded flying 10,000 miles in a single foraging trip, always following, always connected to the ocean's flow. As our drop completes its first full circle around Antarctica, it has become something new, no longer just Caribbean water warmed by tropical sun, but truly global water, carrying within itself the memory of every ocean, every current, every depth it has encountered. It has become, in the most literal sense, a citizen of the world ocean. But our journey is far from over, for the circumpolar current is not a closed loop, but a distributor, sending waters north into the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean. Our drop, having completed its southern education, is about to choose its next adventure, perhaps flowing north into the vast Pacific or joining the warm Agulhas current as it rounds the Cape of Good Hope. Chapter 6. The Pacific Embrace into the Vastest Ocean. Our water drop, now enriched with the memories of Antarctic ice and southern storms, finds itself drawn northward into the Pacific, that vast ocean that covers nearly half our planet's surface. Here, in waters so immense that all the world's continents could fit within their boundaries, our drop begins a new chapter of its endless journey. The Pacific, from the Latin pacificus, meaning peaceful, though Magellan, who first named these waters, encountered them on one of their rare calm days. Most of the time, these waters pulse with energy, driven by the mightiest winds, the deepest trenches, the most powerful currents on our blue planet. Our drop, carried by the Peru current, begins its journey up the western coast of South America. This current, cold and rich with nutrients, creates one of the most productive marine ecosystems on Earth. Here, where cold water rises from the depths, bringing with it the minerals and nutrients that feed countless creatures. The ancient Inca, ruling their empire from the high Andes, understood the sacred nature of these coastal waters. They called the ocean Mama Coca, Mother Water, and believed that the cold current that brought them fish and fertilizer for their crops was a gift from Viracocha, the creator god. They could see even from their mountain kingdom how the cold waters turned the desert coast into a green ribbon of life. As our drop flows northward, it witnesses one of nature's most remarkable phenomena, the Humboldt Current ecosystem, where cold water meets warm air, creating the perfect conditions for explosive growth of marine life. Here, anchovies school in numbers beyond counting, their silver bodies flashing like living mercury in the green-gray water. The Guano Islands, those rocky outcrops along the Peruvian coast, white with centuries of seabird droppings, tell the story of this incredible productivity. Millions of boobies, pelicans, cormorants, all feeding on the fish that thrive in these cold upwelling waters. Their accumulated waste, prized as fertilizer, once made Peru wealthy, all thanks to the nutrients carried by currents like the one bearing our drop. Our drop, as it travels northward, begins to warm. The tropical sun, growing stronger with each degree of latitude, starts to work its ancient magic, preparing our drop for its next transformation. Soon we'll join the great westward flow, the North Equatorial Current, beginning its journey across the vast Pacific Basin. The Polynesian navigators, perhaps the greatest seafarers in human history, knew these currents intimately. They could read the ocean like a book, feeling the subtle changes in water temperature, the shifts in wave patterns of flight of seabirds, all signs that spoke of invisible rivers flowing beneath their outrigger canoes. Master navigator Nainoa Thompson, carrying on this ancient tradition, speaks of the ocean as a living entity, constantly changing, constantly communicating. The currents, he says, are the ocean's bloodstream, carrying life, carrying stories, carrying the very essence of our planet's vitality from one shore to another. Our drop, now caught in the North Equatorial Current, begins its epic journey across the Pacific. 8,000 miles of open ocean, from the coast of South America to the shores of Asia. This crossing, at the leisurely pace of ocean currents, will take our drop several years, years of drifting beneath tropical skies, years of experiencing the Pacific's many moods. In these equatorial waters, our drop encounters the doldrums, that mysterious zone where winds die and sailing ships could be becalmed for weeks. Here, where the trade winds from north and south meet and cancel each other out, the ocean takes on almost mystical quality, glassy smooth, reflecting the sky like a liquid mirror. The Pacific, we discover, is not one ocean, but many. Each region, each current system, each depth has its own character, its own story. Our drop, now traveling westward, passes over the deepest places on Earth, trenches that descend 7 miles below the surface, valleys so deep that Mount Everest could be submerged within them and still leave room for another mountain on top. The Hawaiian Islands' volcanic peaks, rising from the ocean floor, create their own current systems. The island effect, as oceanographers call it, disrupts the smooth flow of the North Equatorial Current, creating eddies and countercurrents that can trap water, and our drop in circular patterns that last for months. The ancient Hawaiians who arrived in these islands following the currents and stars understood the ocean's power to both give and take life. They spoke of Kanala, the ocean god, who controlled the currents and the creatures within them. They knew that the same waters that brought them fish and rain could also bring storms and destruction. Our drop, as it passes through Hawaiian waters, may encounter the Hawaiian monk seal, one of the world's most endangered marine mammals. These seals, found nowhere else on Earth, depend on the current systems that carry our drop, diving deep to feed on fish and squid in the clear blue waters surrounding the islands. The North Pacific Gyre, that massive circular current system, begins to exert its influence on our drop, like a slow-motion whirlpool thousands of miles across. The gyre rotates clockwise, driven by the trade winds and the Earth's rotation. Our drop, now part of this vast circulation, may spend years, even decades, slowly spiraling through the Central Pacific. In the center of this gyre, in an area larger than Texas, floats one of human civilization's most troubling legacies, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Millions of tons of plastic debris, caught in the same circular currents that carry our drop. This plastic, broken down by sun and waves into microscopic pieces, has become part of the ocean's very fabric. Yet even in this polluted realm, life finds a way. Scientists have discovered new species of bacteria that can digest plastic. Nature, it seems, is already beginning to adapt to the changes we have brought to the ocean. Our drop, carrying within it both ancient nutrients and modern contaminants, becomes a witness to the ocean's remarkable resilience. The albatrosses that nest on remote Pacific islands, like Midway Atoll, mistake floating plastic for food, feeding it to their chicks. These magnificent seabirds, with their 12-foot wingspan, can soar across thousands of miles of ocean. But they cannot distinguish between the natural and the artificial in waters that have become hybrid ecosystems. Our drop, continuing its westward journey, approaches the Western Pacific, where the warm pool, the largest body of warm water on our planet, spreads across an area larger than the continental United States. Here, in water temperatures that hover near 85 degrees Fahrenheit, tropical storms are born, typhoons that will carry moisture evaporated from our drop across continents. The Philippine Sea, that vast expanse of tropical water, becomes our drop's temporary home. Here, where warm currents whirl in complex patterns, our drop may encounter the Kuroshio Current, the Pacific's equivalent of the Gulf Stream, carrying warm water northward toward Japan. This current, swift and powerful, moves like a river of warmth through the cooler northern Pacific. The Japanese, who have lived with the Kuroshio for millennia, call it the Black Current for its deep blue color. They understand its power to bring both blessing and destruction. Warm rains that nurture their rice crops, but also the typhoons that can devastate their islands. The current brings nutrients that support their fishing industry, but also carries jellyfish blooms that can clog their nets. Our drop, now part of the Kuroshio, races northward at speeds of up to 4 miles per hour, faster than it has moved since leaving the Gulf Stream. The warm water, meeting the cold Oyashio Current flowing south from the Arctic, creates one of the most productive fishing grounds in the world, where tuna, salmon, and countless other species gather to feed in the deep waters beneath the Kuroshio. Our drop occasionally descends into the midnight zone, where bioluminescent creatures create displays of living light. Jellyfish that pulse with electric blue, deep-sea anglerfish with their glowing lures, creatures that have evolved to create their own light in a world of eternal darkness. The Japanese have a word, mono no aware, the pathos of things, the bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of all things. Perhaps they learned this wisdom from watching the ocean, seeing how currents flow and change, how warm water becomes cold, how the same drop can bring life and death, joy and sorrow, all as part of the natural order. Chapter 7, Arctic Awakening, the Changing Polar Seas. Our water drop, warmed by its journey through tropical Pacific waters, finds itself drawn northward by forces beyond its control. The great ocean conveyor belt, that global circulation system, calls our drop toward the Arctic Ocean, toward waters that are transforming more rapidly than any on our planet. The Bering Strait, that narrow passage between Alaska and Siberia, becomes the gateway to our drop's polar adventure, only 55 miles wide. This shallow channel connects the Pacific and Arctic Oceans. Here, where warm Pacific water meets the cold Arctic, our drop experiences one of the most dramatic temperature changes on Earth. The Inuit peoples, who have lived in these Arctic waters for thousands of years, speak of the ocean as Sila, the life force that connects all things. They understand, in ways that modern science is only beginning to appreciate, that the ice and water are not separate elements, but part of one living system, constantly changing, constantly adapting. Our drop, now entering Arctic waters, encounters sea ice for the first time. These frozen sheets, some as thick as a 3-story building, create a unique environment where water exists in multiple states, liquid beneath, solid above, and vapor rising from leads and breathing holes. The ice, we discover, is not static, but constantly moving, grinding, melting, refreezing. Polar bears, those magnificent apex predators, depend on this ice as their hunting platform. They follow the edge of the ice as it advances and retreats with the seasons, their very survival linked to the same currents that carry our drop. When the ice retreats too far from shore, the bears must swim vast distances, sometimes drowning in waters they cannot cross. The Arctic Ocean, smallest and shallowest of all oceans, experiences extremes unknown elsewhere. In winter, when the sun disappears for months, our drop flows beneath a ceiling of ice in perpetual darkness. In summer, when the sun never sets, the surface waters warm, and ice melts at unprecedented rates, our drop, carried by the Arctic circumpolar current, begins a clockwise journey around the Arctic basin, past the Beaufort Sea, where oil platforms drill through ice into waters that have been frozen for millennia, past the Laptev Sea, where great Siberian rivers pour fresh water into the salty Arctic, creating complex layers of different densities. The Siberian peoples, the Nenets and Chukchi, who follow reindeer herds across the tundra, tell stories of Sedna's northern sister, a sea goddess who controls the Arctic waters. They believe that when the ice speaks, creaking and groaning as it moves, it is the goddess singing, calling the seals and whales, warning of storms and changes. Climate scientists studying these same waters have discovered that the Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. The ice that once reflected sunlight back to space now melts to reveal dark water that absorbs heat. Our drop, witness to this transformation, carries within its molecular structure the chemical signatures of change. As our drop flows through the Beaufort Gyre, that massive clockwise circulation in the western Arctic, it may become trapped for years, slowly accumulating fresh water from melting ice and river discharge. This gyre, like a giant storage tank, holds fresh water that could dramatically alter ocean circulation if suddenly released. The narwhals, those unicorns of the sea with their spiral tusks, migrate through these same waters, diving deep beneath the ice to feed on Arctic cod. Their tusks, we now know, are sensitive organs that can detect changes in water pressure, temperature, and salinity. They are living instruments reading the same ocean conditions that affect our drop. The Northwest Passage, that legendary sea route through the Arctic archipelago, opens and closes with the advance and retreat of sea ice. Our drop, flowing through these channels, passes islands where polar explorers seeking fame and fortune became trapped in ice and perished, their ships, crushed by forces they could not comprehend. Now rest on the seafloor monuments to human ambition and Arctic power. Sir John Franklin's expedition, lost in these waters in 1845, included 129 men who vanished without a trace. Only recently, with the ice retreating due to climate change, have their ships been found perfectly preserved in Arctic waters. The same warming that reveals these historical treasures also threatens the ecosystem they rest within. Our drop, as it flows beneath the diminishing ice, witnesses the collapse of ecosystems that have existed for millions of years. Ice algae, the foundation of Arctic food webs, can only grow on the underside of sea ice. As the ice disappears, so does this crucial source of nutrition, affecting everything from tiny amphipods to massive bowhead whales. The bowhead whales, giants that can live over 200 years, carry within their bodies the history of Arctic change. Harpoon points from 19th century whaling expeditions, still embedded in their flesh, mark them as living time capsules. Some of these whales, swimming in the same waters as our drop, witnessed the beginning of industrial whaling, and now experience the warming caused by industrial emissions. The indigenous communities of the Arctic, from Greenland to Alaska to Siberia, report changes their ancestors never experienced: ice forming later, melting earlier, storms more frequent and violent. The elders, keepers of traditional knowledge, speak of the ocean's voice changing, of currents flowing in new directions, of sea ice that no longer follows ancient patterns. Our drop, now carrying trace chemicals from industrial pollution, pesticides that traveled here through atmospheric circulation. Microplastics that have reached even these remote waters becomes a messenger of global interconnection, evidence that no place on Earth, no matter how remote, remains untouched by human activity. The transpolar drift, a current that carries ice and water from Siberia across the Arctic to Greenland, may transport our drop on a 2-year journey across the top of the world. This drift, discovered by Fridtjof Nansen when his ship Fram was deliberately frozen into the ice, reveals the Arctic as not a static ice cap, but a dynamic system in constant motion. During this trans-Arctic voyage, our drop experiences the seasonal rhythms of polar life. In spring, beneath the ice, algae bloom in spectacular displays visible from space. Arctic terns, having just completed their migration from Antarctica, dive through leads in the ice to feed on small fish. The Arctic summer, brief but intense, transforms the ocean into a garden of marine life. Greenland, that massive island covered by ice up to 2 miles thick, looms ahead as our drop approaches the Atlantic basin. The Greenland ice sheet, containing enough water to raise global sea levels by 24 feet, is melting at accelerating rates. Fresh water from this melting, billions of tons each year, pours into the ocean, potentially disrupting the very currents that have carried our drop around the world. The Vikings, who settled Greenland during a warm period 1,000 years ago, called it the Green Land for the grass that grew along its southern shores. Now, as temperatures warm again, that green land is revealing itself once more. But the ice loss threatens to trigger changes in ocean circulation that could paradoxically bring cooling to Europe and warming to the Arctic. Our drop, having witnessed the Arctic's transformation, begins its journey back into the Atlantic, carrying with it the chemical signatures of melting ice, the memory of polar bears on diminishing floes, the songs of whales adapting to changing seas. It has become, in its molecular structure, a witness to one of the most dramatic environmental changes in Earth's history. The Fram Strait, that deep passage between Greenland and Svalbard, becomes our drop's exit from the Arctic. Here, where warm Atlantic water flows north and cold Arctic water flows south, our drop joins the East Greenland Current, beginning its journey down the coast of the Great Ice Island, carrying the Arctic story back to the world. As our drop flows southward, it passes icebergs, some as large as cities, calved from Greenland's glaciers. These floating islands, containing ice that fell as snow thousands of years ago, slowly melt as they drift into warmer waters. Each berg, a time capsule from Earth's climatic past, now returning to the sea that created it. Chapter 8. The Eternal Return, completing the circle. Our water drop, now carrying the memories of Arctic ice and polar storms, finds itself drawn southward by the East Greenland Current, beginning its return journey toward the warmer waters where its odyssey began. But this is not the same drop that started its journey in Caribbean sunshine. It has been transformed, enriched, made wise by its travels through every ocean, every depth, every climate zone on our blue planet. The Denmark Strait, that deep channel between Greenland and Iceland, becomes a crucial passage in our drop's homeward journey. Here, where Arctic water meets Atlantic water, some of the most violent mixing on Earth occurs. Underwater waterfalls, invisible from the surface, cascade over submarine ridges with forces that dwarf any terrestrial waterfall. Our drop, caught in this turbulent mixing, experiences the raw power of oceanic forces. Water masses colliding with the energy of tectonic plates, creating whirlpools and eddies that can trap water for months. The ancient Norse, sailing these treacherous waters, spoke of Ager, the sea giant who stirred the ocean with his massive hands, creating the storms and currents that challenged even the bravest seafarer. As our drop flows southward, it begins to warm once again. The Gulf Stream, that same current it rode northward years ago, now welcomes it back like an old friend. But something has changed. The stream itself is shifting, weakening, as fresh water from melting Greenland ice disrupts the delicate balance of salt and temperature that drives this oceanic river. Scientists studying these changes speak of tipping points, moments when gradual change becomes sudden transformation. Our drop, flowing through waters that have carried warmth to Europe for millennia, may witness the slowing or even stopping of this great circulation, changes that could transform the climate of entire continents. The Sargasso Sea, that mysterious region of the North Atlantic bounded not by land, but by currents, becomes our drop's waiting room. Here, in waters so clear they seem like liquid crystal, floating mats of sargassum seaweed create a unique ecosystem. American and European eels, born in these waters, begin their own epic journeys to distant rivers, following currents in reverse. Christopher Columbus, encountering the Sargasso Sea on his first voyage to the New World, feared his ships would become entangled in the floating weeds. His sailors, already nervous about sailing into the unknown, saw sea serpents in every shadow, monsters in every floating mass. They could not have imagined that they were sailing through one of the ocean's great nurseries. Our drop, drifting through these tropical waters, witnesses the spawning of countless creatures: bluefin tuna, giants that can grow to the size of small cars, travel thousands of miles to breed in these warm waters. Their young, no bigger than pinheads, depend on the same currents that carry our drop, riding microscopic eddies to feeding grounds across the Atlantic. The Bermuda Triangle, that region of supposed mystery and disappearance, lies within these same waters. Perhaps the legends, the stories of ships and planes vanishing, reflect some deeper truth about the ocean's power to swallow human ambitions. The currents here, complex and shifting, can indeed make navigation challenging, creating conditions where the unwary might indeed vanish beneath the waves. As our drop continues its journey, it encounters evidence of humanity's growing impact on the oceans. Microplastics, fragments smaller than rice grains, drift alongside natural plankton. Chemical pollutants, invisible but persistent, have reached even the deepest trenches. The ocean, once thought too vast to be affected by human activity, now bears the signature of our industrial civilization in every drop. Yet life adapts, evolves, perseveres. Scientists have discovered bacteria that can digest oil, algae that can absorb heavy metals, coral reefs that show signs of developing resistance to bleaching. The ocean, it seems, is not merely a victim of change, but an active participant in creating new forms of life, new solutions to environmental challenges. The Caribbean Sea, where our drop began its journey, appears on the horizon like a welcoming embrace. These turquoise waters, warm and inviting, seem unchanged, but our drop, now carrying the chemical signatures of its global journey, recognizes subtle differences: slightly higher temperatures, different pH levels, coral reefs showing stress from warming waters. The coral reefs, those rainforests of the sea, face unprecedented challenges. Rising temperatures cause coral bleaching. Acidification from absorbed carbon dioxide weakens their skeletons. Yet some corals, those in the path of our drop's warming current, show remarkable resilience, adapting to changing conditions, evolving new partnerships with algae, finding ways to survive in a changing ocean. Hurricane season in these warming waters brings storms of increasing intensity. The same thermal energy that drives ocean currents also powers these massive cyclones. Our drop, warm from its global travels, contributes its energy to the formation of storms that can reshape coastlines, alter ecosystems, change the very currents that gave them birth. The indigenous Taino people, who lived in the Caribbean before Columbus, understood the ocean's dual nature, source of life and agent of destruction. They spoke of Guabansex, the goddess of storms, who could bring both the rains that nourished their crops and the hurricanes that destroyed their villages. They lived, as we must learn to live, with respect for the ocean's awesome power. Our drop, now completing its circle, joins other waters in the great gyre of the North Atlantic. Some drops, its traveling companions, will be drawn north again by the Gulf Stream, beginning another cycle. Others will flow south toward the equator, joining the trade wind currents, starting new journeys to distant shores. The ocean, we realize, has no beginning and no end. Each drop is part of an eternal circulation, a planetary bloodstream that connects every shore, every creature, every climate. Our drop, in its journey around the world, has become part of this larger story, this epic tale of connection and flow that defines our blue planet. Climate scientists studying the changing patterns of ocean circulation worry about what they call the global conveyor belt, the system of currents that carries heat from equator to poles, nutrients from deep to surface, life from ocean to ocean. This system, driven by differences in temperature and salinity, shows signs of slowing, weakening, potentially stopping if the conveyor belt were to shut down, as it may have done in the past during ice ages. The consequences would be dramatic. Europe could cool rapidly. Tropical regions might become even hotter. Weather patterns across the globe could shift dramatically. Our drop, messenger of the seas, carries within its molecular structure both the promise of stability and the warning of change. Yet the ocean has survived far greater changes than any humanity has caused. It has frozen almost solid during snowball Earth events, boiled during asteroid impacts, slowly poisoned by volcanic gases. And somehow, life has not only survived, but flourished. The ocean, it seems, is not fragile, but resilient, not static, but adaptive. Our drop, having witnessed the ocean's power to change and endure, continues its eternal dance, sometimes at the surface, warmed by tropical sun, sometimes in the depths, moving at the pace of deep time, always flowing, always changing, always part of the great circulation that makes our planet livable. The indigenous peoples of many cultures understood what modern science is rediscovering, that we are not separate from the ocean, but part of it, made mostly of water ourselves, our bodies carrying the same salt ratios as ancient seas. We are, in the most literal sense, walking, thinking droplets of seawater, temporarily organized into human form. Our drop, as it continues its endless journey, carries this truth in its molecular memory, that all water is connected, all life is connected, all stories flow together in the great ocean of existence. And so, dear listeners, as you drift toward sleep, remember that you too are part of this ancient flow, this eternal current that connects all things. Chapter 9, The Infinite Dance, where every drop returns home, as our water drop settles back into the warm embrace of Caribbean waters. Something profound has occurred. This is no longer just a single drop of water, but a library of experiences, a vessel containing the memory of every ocean, every current, every creature it has encountered on its magnificent journey around our blue world. The morning sun rises over these tropical waters, just as it has for billions of years, casting golden pathways across the gentle swells. Our drop, now part of the surface waters, once again, feels the familiar warmth penetrating its molecular structure. The same solar energy that began this journey now welcomes it home, but home, we discover, is not a place, but a state of being or recognition that every drop belongs everywhere, and everywhere belongs to every drop. The sea turtles, ancient mariners, who have navigated these waters for over 100 million years, glide past with their timeless grace. Some of these very turtles, their shells scarred by decades of ocean travel, may have encountered our drop before in distant Pacific waters or Arctic seas. Now they meet again, old companions in the eternal dance of sea and life. Indigenous Caribbean cultures, the Arawak and Carib peoples who understood the sea as their highway, their garden, their sacred temple, spoke of Atabay, the mother goddess of fresh water and fertility. They believed that all water, whether in rivers, lakes, or seas, was connected through her divine essence. Our drop, having completed its global pilgrimage, embodies this ancient wisdom, carrying within itself the tears of glaciers, the breath of whales, the songs of storms, the coral polyps, tiny animals no bigger than pinheads, that build the great reefs of these waters. Work with patient dedication, each one adding its microscopic contribution to structures that can be seen from space. Like our drop, each polyp is small, seemingly insignificant. Yet collectively, they create some of the most magnificent and diverse ecosystems on Earth. Oceanographers speak of residence time, the average length of time a molecule of water spends in any given part of the ocean system. Surface waters in the tropics, like those embracing our drop, have residence times of decades. Deep waters may circulate for centuries or millennia, but these numbers, precise as they are, cannot capture the true nature of our drop's journey. For our drop has become something beyond measurement. It carries within its hydrogen and oxygen bonds the quantum memory of every interaction, every temperature change, every pressure shift, every encounter with life. It has become, in the most literal sense, a drop of liquid history, a messenger from every corner of our planet's hydrosphere. The flying fish, silver arrows that leap from wave to wave, embody the ocean's desire to touch the sky. Their flight, brief but beautiful, reminds us that boundaries exist only in our minds. Water becomes vapor, becomes cloud, becomes rain, becomes river, becomes sea. All states, all forms, all locations, part of one continuous transformation. Our drop, as it drifts in these surface waters, may soon be drawn upward by the tropical sun. Becoming vapor once again, perhaps it will join a cloud, travel over land, fall as rain on distant mountains, begin a new journey through rivers and underground aquifers. Every pathway, every possibility remains open. The whale song, echoing through these waters, carries messages across ocean basins. Humpback whales, their haunting melodies, create the longest songs in the animal kingdom, some lasting for hours, traveling hundreds of miles through the liquid medium. Our drop, sensitive to these vibrations, becomes part of the communication network that spans the seas. Scientists studying these whale songs have discovered that they change over time, evolving like human languages, spreading like musical fashions across entire ocean basins. The whales, it seems, are not just singing to their immediate pod, but participating in a global conversation, a planetary consciousness mediated by the very waters that carry our drop. The concept of deep time, geological time scales that dwarf human experience, takes on new meaning when considered through the journey of our drop, the water cycle. This endless circulation between sea, sky, and land has been operating for over 4 billion years. Our drop in its travels has participated in the formation of continents, the evolution of life, the changing of climates. Every raindrop that has ever fallen, every snowflake that has ever melted, every tear that has ever been shed, has contributed to the vast library of experience that our drop now represents. It carries within itself the molecular memory of dinosaurs drinking from ancient rivers, of the first fish breathing through primitive gills, of ice ages and warm periods, of meteor impacts and volcanic eruptions. The northern lights, aurora borealis, dancing in Arctic skies, are connected to our drop's journey through magnetic forces that span from Earth's core to the edge of space. Solar particles interacting with our planet's magnetic field create displays of light that can be seen reflected in the waters our drop has traveled. Even the cosmos, it seems, participates in the ocean's story. Indigenous Arctic peoples, watching these lights dance across polar skies, understood them as the spirits of their ancestors, playing games with walrus skulls. The lights, they said, were connected to the movements of sea ice, to the migrations of animals, to the very breath of the ocean itself. Modern science, with its understanding of electromagnetic fields and solar wind, confirms this ancient intuition of connection. Our drop, now part of the surface waters where bioluminescent plankton create trails of living light, experiences the ocean's own aurora, dinoflagellates, microscopic creatures that flash with blue-green light when disturbed, turn every wave, every movement into a display of natural fireworks. Swimming dolphins leave trails of liquid starlight, each movement illuminated by millions of tiny living lanterns. This bioluminescence, this ability of life to create light, evolved independently many times in ocean creatures. from the deep-sea anglerfish with their glowing lures to the crystal jellies drifting near the surface. Life has found countless ways to bring illumination to the darkness. Our drop, carrying these creatures in its microscopic ecosystem, becomes a vehicle for light itself. The great ocean conveyor belt, that global circulation system, our drop has traveled, shows signs of change. Climate scientists speak of tipping points, critical thresholds beyond which the system might shift to a new state. The melting of polar ice, the warming of surface waters, the changing patterns of precipitation, all affect the delicate balance that drives ocean circulation. Yet the ocean has survived greater changes. During the Paleocene thermal maximum, 56 million years ago, global temperatures rose by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius in just a few thousand years. The ocean circulation stopped and restarted. Life adapted and evolved. New forms of beauty emerged from the chaos. Our drop, carrier of this deep history, embodies the ocean's remarkable resilience. The children playing on Caribbean beaches, building sandcastles at the water's edge, unknowingly touch the same waters that have traveled to the ends of the earth. Their laughter, mixing with the sound of waves, becomes part of the ocean's symphony. The sea, indifferent to human concerns, yet intimately connected to human life, continues its eternal dance. One day, these children may become oceanographers, climate scientists, marine biologists, continuing humanity's quest to understand the blue planet that sustains all life. They may track currents with sophisticated instruments, map genetic flows across ocean basins, discover new species in the deepest trenches, but they will be studying the same waters, the same currents, the same eternal circulation that carries our drop. As our story draws toward its peaceful close, our water drop continues its dance, neither beginning nor ending, but simply flowing, being, becoming. It carries within its molecular structure the memory of every place it has been, every creature it has sustained, every current it has joined. The ocean, we have learned, is not just water, but liquid time, liquid history, liquid possibility. Every drop, including our traveling companion, is simultaneously ancient and newborn, local and global, individual and universal. It embodies the profound truth that separation is illusion, that connection is reality, that we are all part of one magnificent, flowing, ever-changing whole. And so, dear travelers, as you drift toward sleep, remember that you too are made mostly of water. You too carry within yourselves the salt of ancient seas. You too are part of this great circulation, this eternal flow that connects every raindrop to every ocean, every tear to every tide, every cloud to every current. Let the rhythm of the waves, the gentle pulse of tides, the quiet whisper of currents carry you into peaceful dreams, knowing that you are connected to every drop, every ocean, every shore, in the infinite dance of water that makes our blue planet home. Rest now in the embrace of this knowledge. Drift gently like our water drop in the eternal currents of existence, where every journey leads home. And home is everywhere the water flows.